I've started recording every Mythic Plus key this season, and in these episodes I'll go over the ups and downs of my journey towards getting that juicy sought after 0.1% title. Just quickly mentioning why this episode will be shorter than the others. It was because I'm playing Enhancement Shaman. I'm not going to beat around the bush. I feel like at this key level now, people just don't want you in their group, unfortunately. So I only got into maybe half the keys I normally would do in the other episodes. I sat in Valdrakken for multiple hours on different days throughout this week. I did my own key, I even tried re-rolling it multiple times when it got depleted. I also joined keys I'd already timed on the hope that we would run their key afterwards. Sometimes I wasn't even getting invited to the keys I already had timed. People were just waiting for different classes. So yeah, this week it just wasn't my week, it didn't work out. So there's not too much footage, I do apologise. And it's also unfortunate that it was a really great week to push because the affixes were Fortified, Storming and Bursting. And I know a lot of people would have pushed for the title this week. But yeah, it's what it is. We chose this road. I'm not going to give up. But yeah, besides that, diving into the keys though, we head into a 28 Atal. I go left side with Lust as it is fortified, but the start of the dungeon was pretty scuffed. We had multiple deaths due to poor play, myself included. We had a bugged weak aura with the new patch from my wolves, so every single time I pressed on an ability which summoned a wolf, it would just permanently stay there on my screen. So at one point in the dungeon, it goes all the way to the top of my screen because it was never ending, and I'm not going to lie, it really did throw me off when I was playing, as you can imagine. The big pack just before Priestess went sour very quickly, as two of the mobs you end up passing on the stairs going into this area are a Augur and a Juggernaut. So once you end up getting in combat with both of these, the Juggernaut's cooldown of his charge is going to tick down as we're grouping everything up, so you can see where I'm going with this. We get everything nice and tightly stacked, the Mistweaver puts his statue out to bait the charges, but the previous Juggernaut ends up being slightly too far out of the stack, so when he does charge, he charges into every single one of us. He instantly takes out the Priest and the Mistweaver, and because the Mistweaver dies, the charges are now going to be even more YOLO, as there's nothing for the Juggernauts to bait to. We rack up a few more deaths here, but we end up clearing the pack and Priestess. After that, we do this pull I've not actually seen done before. I can imagine it's probably inspired by the MDI. So the aim of this pull here is you set yourself on top of this ledge, and then the tank stays out, it gathers up as many Sky Screamers and Sword packs as you can handle. And then because you're on the ledge, the little swords can't actually jump to you. Back in BFA, people used to use this strat, and I remember doing it myself, but back in BFA, you don't have the issues of storming like you do in the current expansion, so that can actually still spawn underneath your feet. So as you can imagine, myself and the priest end up getting knocked up by storming into millions of little swords, and the priest ends up going down here. With most of the dangerous trash out of the way, we blast through the rest of the dungeon with only a couple of deaths on Vocal to the AoE docks. It does still hit pretty hard, even on Fortified. Then it's on to Yasma, our favourite spider lady, who definitely hasn't scarred me for life in the previous episodes. But do you know what? Not a single death was to be taken from this spider bit lady, and we actually instead timed another 28 key to start the week off. That gives us a whopping plus 11, and we love them double digit gains. We did a respectable 300 plus K overall, which is pretty nice. If we cranked a little bit more in that big MDI ledge pull, I reckon we'd be sitting pretty at number 1 in the key. I asked the same group again if they were going to do another key, and thankfully they were, so I head straight into another key in a 28 Darkheart Thicket. We do the standard big boy pull with the bear, and we send Lust on that pack. Me and the priest funnel down the bear, so it goes pretty smoothly. Up until the end, where the priest gets unlucky, gets a back-to-back leap and bursting, so that ends up taking them out. Then I do something completely stupid. They had briefly mentioned before the dungeon started that the DH was going to do some form of like ninja tech skip after this pack. I wasn't really sure on what pack they were talking about, so as we get to it, the rest of the party run to the left, the DH runs to the right with this pack, and I just run along with the DH because I'm like, oh, we're doing another pull, zug zug. But yeah, the aim was, he was going to pull this pack to the right, jump back and then shadow meld, so we effectively skipped the pack that way. So yeah, I end up just trolling a little bit here. It is completely my bad. I get a res, and then once I get res, we do a pretty big pull down the bottom area here. But unfortunately, we end up losing the DK and the Mistweaver to the Star Shower Swirlies. I think the group was a 4-man as well, as after we did finish that pack, the DK puts in the chat this. So it did make me feel a little bit better here with my trolling at the start. So yeah, we were all trolling, but we're at least doing it together. After the first part of silly deaths, we get to the boss, and the healer didn't have Invis Potion. So while we were rezzing him after we did the double bear skip, the tank ran off and pulled one of the dryads in the further area ahead, which kind of makes sense, but it is kind of risky with the boss. But I guess maybe their reasoning for doing that was that it is a fortified week, so the bleed from the boss when he does leap isn't going to tick as hard as it normally would in Tyrannical. It is my first time doing this myself, and I'm definitely learning more things playing with these pre-mades. If only it happened more, eh? Boss was smooth though, and your boy was top damage. We pull big into the little cozy house area here, and your boy Teadrinker strikes again, thinking the ground swirly was safe where I was, and I end up going down alongside the DK as well, who also got clipped by the swirlies. My excuse is that it was 12:30 at night and I was tired. Do not at me in the comments, or at least be gentle, please. After we clear that pack, we do the DH Ninja Tech on the double keeper pack and we skip past. We didn't actually mess up the skip either, so progress, we are learning. We then do a pretty massive pull, and to be honest, I probably would have lusted it. I did ask if they wanted it, but they said save it for the boss, as these fear mobs with the Dryad is a really nasty combo. You need a lot of CC, lots of damage going out from the cast and the Dryad, but somehow we managed to beautifully, like Mozart, choreograph our CC, and we only had 2 deaths, 1 in the pack, and 1 from the DK who got meleeed as we were setting up the pull. Oakheart was free, and we're going to round up and say I did 400k throughout the whole fight, which is fucking huge. Dragon D's also went down really easily as well, and then it was on to Daddy Xavius, who is always a pain in the ass, and I don't think I've ever done this key without people dying in the last phase. We end up losing the priest to a swirly, and the DK gets a Nightmare Bolt, and he didn't use his defensive, so he ends up just dropping out. The monk cocoons me as the boss is casting Feed the Weak on me, and that hits really hard, so whilst the monk is healing me and the priest gets rezzed, the priest doesn't actually top himself up, so as soon as Festering Rip comes back up, it instantly kills him again, and he is dead for the fight now. Speaking of myself having the extra defensive and staying alive, this Rageheart Trinket is so good, especially for bosses like Xavius, where when you have these massive hitting abilities, having that extra defensive or that, defensive trinket, honestly is just night and day difference. We finish the boss and we get a massive +10, so another double digit increase in Rio, poggers. We also completely smoked the overall, and I'm super happy with my performance, outside of the slight troll in the first half. Again into another 28 dungeon, absolutely firing them out at the start of the week. And it's a 28 fall. No rogue in this party, so we invis downstairs, and we don't play the boss with the ads as we normally would, as we're all melee, so the rippers are just going to fire straight into the big stack of us, so yeah, we don't want any ripper boys spinning in the middle of us. This boss is super free, and only notable thing which happened was the monk got absolutely slam dunked by the leap, which I've not seen happen for quite a while. And then after the first boss, we start to go through the portal, and I noticed a tank on the minimap running up the stairs, so I thought, oh, he might have actually changed the route and he's going to pull some mobs, so I quickly ran back to go help him out, but he wanted to die? ? Now I'm in combat, same as the healer, so we just get 2 more deaths for a random reason I still don't know to this day. But if you guys know what trickery this is, please do tell me. In the next area, we only had 1 death, and that was to a Chrono Burst, which is pretty good going for this area, honestly, because it's stacked with abilities which can kill you. You got Chrono Burst, Tainted Sands, Bloom, and on top of that you got Bursting. The healer did really well, so good job to him. I tried to save the Paladin with the Chrono Burst, which kills him with some surges, but it just wasn't enough, unfortunately. Timeways was easy, and we were all within 1k DPS of each other, which was pretty nice to see, honestly. Throughout the rest of the dungeon, nothing bad happened, and we played it really clean. Just to kind of touch on what I said at the start, I'd love to see some tuning for Season 4 for Shaman, as this week was really rough trying to get into keys. As you could see though, with the dungeon so far, these affixes made it easier, and out of the few dungeons we actually did do, we timed a good amount of them. It's a shame that people meta slave so hard at this level and don't take chances, but I kind of understand it on the flip side, as you spend hours and hours farming your own key, so you do kind of want the best chance possible. But yeah, hopefully we'll see something for Season 4, maybe an extra defensive, maybe a buff to AoE, but yeah, we'll see. Back to the dungeon though, we had a super clean Iridicron kill, and it wasn't even close to the DPS check. We got a nice +12, which is the fattest number we've had for a little while. And it's a sexy double digit, so what's not to like? So after these back-to-back completos, we're now at 3-5, 3-6, and another 28 done. Now we go into a 28 Waycrest, which was my key, and it's a pretty spicy dungeon, as you're all aware. And this one had something super random and annoying happen, but I just ended up laughing it off because sometimes IRL issues happen for other players. So here's the context. We do a big pull at the start here, and we were absolutely cranking in this opener. I fully expected not to be out in the lock and the paladin, but obviously we're just a giga gamer. And yeah, now for the me moment. We pull the Triad, we get the First Witch to 50%, we phase onto the Curse Witch Briar, and now pay close attention to the Priest here. He starts moving left to drop the stacks of his debuff, and just continues moving, but you can see him trying to fight his character. So what had happened was, his button got stuck on his keyboard, and this is the first time ever it's happened apparently, and if this is the first time it happened in reality, it just happens in my key. Yeah, you just have to laugh this stuff off, honestly. Situations like this are just, yeah, what can you say? Because if you don't laugh, you probably cry. So, on to the next key. Now you're probably wondering, how the hell did you get into a 29 Everbloom? Well, I joined one of those 27++ Blackrook in Group Finder, and we did in fact ++ it. Now the dude has a 29 Everbloom, the Druid. I only have a 26 timed on Everbloom on both Fortified and Tyrannical, as somehow it always ends up going pear-shaped for me. But do you think the 29 will be the same story? The opening pull was absolutely massive, and I waited to kick the first Naturalist Choking Vines cast, as I've been stung in the past by that. I do not like being Darth Vader choked by that mob, and it's happened way too many times. But in this pull, the tank also grabs an A-bomb. Yes, an A-bomb on a 29 fortified in a pug with no comms, with only me having good priority funnel damage. So, knowing that I'm the only one who's going to actually focus it down, I send as much damage as I possibly can into the A-bomb, and guess what happens? Yeah, I get aggro, the A-bomb breathes in my direction, and I fall over like a sack of spuds. The tank definitely should have kept taunt on this A-bomb and kept aggro on it, because they are super high priority. From that point though, it just goes from bad to worse. We call it there, but the tank ended up blaming the rep for not putting freedom on him, as if him kiting any better would have helped us survive the dungeon. Yeah, but we move on to the next one. After that disaster Everbloom, I thought it was a great idea just to go straight back into another one on a 27. This key wasn't the best either, but we did get slightly further than the previous one. We do the initial big pull without the A-bomb thankfully, and the Shadow Priest was absolutely cranking 1.8 million DPS, so only 3 times my DPS. He ends up going down to the Stingers later in the pull, and I also do myself. And in the start of the pull, the tank procs his Cheat Death trinket, so take that as an indicator right there for what's about to come. We go to do the very next pull, and as the mobs are gathering up, the tank falls over like a piece of paper. So of course, I'm a melee, so I end up going down straight away afterwards to aggro. We move into the cove area here before the first boss, and we do a fairly big pull as you normally would. You normally put it in this area so you don't aggro Gnarroot. but Naru gets pulled. I'm not sure who ninjaed, so I won't pin the blame on anyone. We end up wiping, of course, on that pack, and we give it one last attempt. We finish that pull I just spoke about in the cove, and then the tank pulls the first pack in the boss area, falls over again like a piece of paper, and that is the key. After that, I tried to reroll my own 27 key into something I needed, like a Rise or an Everbloom, as I still have both of them on a 26. So I ended up joining this 27 Waycrest Manor in LFG, which I had already timed. We did have a few deaths to random stuff throughout, just your typical Waycrest stuff like the Thorns and the Bleeds. But we blasted through the dungeon so fast that we even plus 2'd it, and we gained plus 2 points because we only plus 1'd it on the previous time. So that takes us to 3539. So I thought I'd just show you the end of the key, as it is a plus in Rio. And the next key is also a Waycrest Manor, so I don't want to overload you with Lady Waycrest. So right into that 28 Waycrest, we go left with the guards and the witch, and this pull is pretty hectic, as you've got 3 different kicks you need to worry about. You've got the frontal cleaves going on as well, and you need to be super on point if you have any casts going on you, because you really need your defensives, because you're probably going to get one shot if you don't use them. Unfortunately, our kicks in the party were crap. People just weren't using them. I ended up kicking a soul bolt, which was on me, and can you guess who the next cast was going on? Myself again, and I didn't have kick because I just used it. We have 3 kicks available, and I just get pelted in one hit because no one decided to help me out. So I end up doing the Teadrinker special, and I do the Tilt Ankh special right here, where I was waiting and waiting for the Shadow Cleave to go off, and I decided to press Ankh maybe 0.01 too early, and I just instantly die again. I run back, I kick a soul bolt again, another one is about to go off on myself again, but we have multiple kicks available, no one uses them, but thankfully I had lost faith in my party already with their kicks, so my inhuman reaction time here, I pressed Earth Alley, which gives me an extra 15% HP, and I just barely survived the cast as it lands. It was so clutch. Outside of that, we had a couple of deaths in the courtyard, as it is the worst trash in the dungeon, honestly, with all the spits and bleeds. Tried went down easily, no ninja pulling priest this time. Goliath was really smooth as well, up until right at the end, where we end up losing the paladin to, I think, the ghost maybe. He wasn't actually next to us, he was like further back where the boss actually spawns. And then the DK gets thorned as the boss is dying, so he ends up dying in the thorns after the boss dies, poor dude. Dr. Disrespect's boss goes down here, Raoul. And then we head into the kitchen, where we actually rack up 4 deaths from all the maggots casting spit, alongside bursting, and just to really nail you into the ground, the witch was also casting etch on people to finish the job. After that, we head downstairs and we lust Alma, as she has a lot of HP. And then after that, we're about to head to Lord and Lady Waycrest staircase. The DK runs a little bit too far to the left, and Ninja pulls the pack off too. The DK ends up going down. I start using my cooldowns like Wolves and Primordial Wave, just as some context on this. We wipe, we go again. I died pretty quickly, so I end up running back to the staircase before everyone else. And because we were staggered in deaths, the DH and the rest of the group ends up pulling something upstairs and brings it down. In my point of view, I wasn't really sure whether or not they'd ninja pulled again, so I was kind of in a limbo whether or not to engage after they came back down. And just to add some more context, these guys were in a 4-man group, so they obviously called to pull something, but I'm not in voice with them, so I didn't really know what was going on. So I end up engaging in the pack they were fighting, and I made sure not to aggro the same pack the DK did, and you'll see me quickly flick my camera around when I did pass the pack, just to see if I had actually pulled it, which I didn't. But currently there is a bug where if you press wolves on a pack of mobs and then you wipe or die to it, the next wolves you send, if that pack is still close by to you, the wolves actually jump to that pack instead of the one you are targeting, so I end up pulling the pack either way. And I didn't realize this until afterwards when I was reading through the Shaman Discord, so be wary of engaging a different pack if you end up wiping on it, because you may do the same thing I do here. We ended up getting another 5 deaths from this caster heavy pack just before Waycrests, which is a rough pack anyway, and having all the issues we did earlier in the dungeon with kicks, it was always going to be a rough inevitably, so yeah, we end up having a few deaths here. It ends up coming down to me and a DH. I knock up a cast which was on me from the Diviner, and then it instantly recasts back on me. I hold my kick to the very last second until 0.1 to interrupt it, and then on the opposite side to me with the Soul Charmer, the DH just lets a cast go through on top of me and it kills me when he had his kick available. I might just rename this dungeon run to Kickless Manor, honestly. After that though, we kill Lord and Lady Waycrest, and the group thought we were a little bit pressed for time, so we end up running all the way down with the horrors and pulling them on top of Gorek Tool downstairs. With bursting and the AoE going off from Dread Essence, I end up going down. I probably could have lived if I quickly topped myself up with a potion, or if I used Earth Alley beforehand, but we get CR'd. We had Lust come up just afterwards before, so we send that. We actually managed to recover the pull from the deaths, and we complete the dungeon with 1 minute and 20 seconds left on the timer, and 26 deaths. Pretty crazy stuff that we actually still managed to time it. And we snagged top damage with all of our deaths from the kicks, and we gained plus 7 points, which takes us to 3,556. Now this is actually our last dungeon, as I thought the Waycrest was. My Shadowplay didn't record this one, but thankfully I was streaming it, so I downloaded the VOD as I thought it was lost. This key was done before the 28 Waycrest as well, just for some context. Diving into it though, it's a 27 rise. We don't go a mega big at the start with the pull, we only pull one of the mini bosses and not both of them. And in the opener, the paladin dies to the ground swirly, pretty troll. After that, we actually clear tier and the platform with no more deaths with decent time, so good going there. We then pull this spicy duo up the stairs and we lose the warrior right at the end on the last cast. He did still have a defensive available, but he might have been saving it for the double dragon pull afterwards. Then moving on to Morchi, I press my primordial wave and only my primordial wave when the boss becomes active. The tank presses sigil, so he's actually done no damage because he's waiting for the sigil to go off because he mistimes it. She walks right over to me and just slaps me dead. One taunt please, Mr. Tank, and then he hits me with the bro. Like, come on man, just press taunt. And this isn't the only time throughout the dungeon that we actually have issues with the tank not taunting stuff and just letting people die. Besides that though, we finish Morchi and we move on to the battlefield area. The mortar mob strikes again for me where I stand a little bit too close to the sides and not enough towards his butt, so as it targets the tank instead of range, the projectiles are right next to us, right underneath the mob, so I instantly go down, and you don't really have enough time to react to it because there isn't really enough time to react to it because they come out so fast. We send our Lust on the 3 horsemen afterwards, and again, I only press Primordial Wave on one of the mobs, and the tank is trying to group them up. He doesn't use any taunt on the further mob, so I end up getting melee hit as I press Lust. Thankfully though, I didn't actually go down, but I would have been really tilted if I would have actually gone down there after pressing Lust. I've not had this many issues with a tank not holding aggro before anyone's even popped any cooldowns. We lose the paladin to Consecration because that hits like a truck on Fortified, but after these silly deaths, we make quick work of Battlefield, and we move on to the last pack before Deos, where the healer actually dies to aggro at the start of the pull. Very questionable stuff here. I think we may have been dealing with the previous affix Skittish, maybe that was added into this dungeon run, but who knows. So that brings us on to Deos, where we actually have a wipe because the paladin pressed his legendary and he is stuck in place and he dies to the frontal. Poor dude. And then the warrior ends up going down slightly after him and we only had 1 res, so rather than just doing the boss as a 4-man, we actually go it again. And then in our second attempt, we finished the boss, and thankfully we did it with less than 30 seconds left, so pretty close. And we managed to be top dam overall again. So throughout this week, we actually timed a good amount of keys and I'm pretty happy. It's a shame we didn't get more invites because I reckon we probably could have hit 3.6k this week with these affixes. We end the week at 3,556 Rio. I will be away when this episode is released, so I will have to add 2 separate affix rotations together for the next episode, as I'm not going to have enough footage for this week as I am away. I hope you all enjoyed the episode though, and the madness which comes with it. And have a great Easter holidays everyone. Peace.